You have probably heard the name of Pablo Escobar at some point in your life. He is universally known as the biggest, most ruthless drug lord in the human history, operating out of the dense jungles and bustling cities of Colombia. At the absolute peak of his criminal empire, Escobar was sitting on personal assets worth well over $30 billion. There is a famous, almost unbelievable story about him running from the police. He was hiding in a cold mountain safe house with his young daughter, and she was shivering. To keep her warm for just a single night, Pablo Escobar casually took $2 million in cold, hard cash, threw into a fireplace, and burned it into ashes. In Pakistani currency, that is roughly 55 crore rupees just gone in smoke to heat a room. But the money is not the most terrifying part of the story. The terrifying part is the sheer absolute power he bought with it. For a long period of time, Pablo Escobar was the uncrowned king of Colombia. He did not just bribe a few low-level officers, but also the national ministers of justice were literally his private employee, collecting a massive monthly salary directly from the cartel. The president of the country was his personal friend. The entire local police force survived exclusively on his payroll. Even the highest judges in the land were taking direct cash payments from him. He was so incredibly powerful and so deeply embedded in the system that the entire sovereign government was absolutely terrified to even touch him. When he eventually agreed to go to prison just to cool things down, they literally built the prison himself. It was a luxury resort, and the armed security guards standing at the gates were not government police officers. They were his own hired cartel members. At one point, his international drug smuggler even got himself successfully elected as a member of national parliament. Now, you are probably sitting there wondering why I'm telling you an old story about a dead Colombian drug smuggler. Our topic today is supposed to be the ongoing wave of terrorism and military operations in Pakistan. What does a South American cartel have to do with bleeding borders of South Asia? It turns out, the story of Pablo Escobar has everything to do with what is happening in Pakistan right now. Because if mechanics of absolute, untouchable power are exactly the same, no matter where you go in the world. Let us look at the reality of free speech in Pakistan today. You can log on to social media right now and you can criticize absolutely anyone. People criticize the army chief every single day. People criticize the Chief Justice of Supreme Court every single day. The Prime Minister and the President are constantly mocked, attacked, and torn apart on national television. Whether it is Imran Khan, Nawaz Sharif, or Asif Ali Zardari, nobody is safe from the brutal wrath of public opinion. You can even openly criticize massive billionaire business tycoons like Malik Riaz, whose name used to be whispered in secret. But there's a very famous, deeply unsettling quote about power. It says that if you truly want to know who rules over you, simply look at who you are absolutely forbidden from criticizing. Think about that for a second. Can you tell me the name of the biggest drug lord currently operating in Pakistan? I'm almost certain you have absolutely no idea. Can you tell me the name of the single biggest smuggler in the country? Can you tell me the name of the person who illegally exchanges the most dollars in underground market? You do not know. Can you name the biggest illegal oil smuggler draining the national economy? You cannot name a single one of them. Now, I know exactly what is running through your mind right now. Because of the endless propaganda on media and social media, your brain immediately points towards the military or the intelligence agencies. You assume they are the ones running the show. But the actual central characters of this massive criminal underworld are completely invisible to you. You have never seen their faces on television, and you have never read their names in a newspaper. Let me give you a piece of history. Back on May 30, 2009, United States President Barack Obama released an official global list of most dangerous and powerful drug traffickers on the planet. Sitting right there on that list, at the number 4 spot in the entire world, was a Pakistani man named Mir Yaqub Bizinjo. Have you ever heard his name? Probably not. Have you ever heard the name of Ayub Afridi? He was historically one of the absolute biggest heroin smuggler in the entire history of Pakistan and Afghanistan. But again, You have likely never heard his name mentioned in any mainstream political debate. These are the untouchable ghosts of our society. These are the people who never give press conferences, never run for public office, and never appear on talk shows. But these invisible smugglers and drug lords are operating a massive, unstoppable empire across all of our borders. Every single day, through the smuggling of narcotics, illegal Iranian oil, and untaxed commercial goods across the Afghan border, they are generating an estimated 50 to 100 billion rupees. Let me repeat that number so it truly sinks in. 50 to 100 billion rupees every single day. These massive criminal cartels operate all across our national boundaries. But because the borders with India and China are heavily militarized, tightly fenced and strictly controlled, the cartels have focused almost their entire operation on the porous borders of Iran and Afghanistan. From these specific western routes, they manage a sprawling, highly sophisticated supply chain that pushes drugs and smuggled goods out to the entire world. Now, ask yourself a simple question of basic business economics. If a cartel is making 100 billion rupees in a single day, what are they willing to do to protect that income? If they take 40% of that money and put it straight into their own pockets, they still have 60% left over. They have 60 billion rupees every single day to spend entirely on protecting their business model. For them, spending billions of rupees a day to buy silence, buy violence, and buy chaos is not an expense. It is simply the cost of doing business. And this is exactly where the story connects directly to the bloodshed in our streets, the endless military operations, and the ultimate reason why terrorism simply refuses to die in Pakistan. You see, this exact mafia is completely hollowing out the absolute foundations of Pakistani state. For years, the Pakistani military has launched massive, bloody operation against the terrorists of Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. The army clears an area, soldiers sacrifice their lives, and the terrorists are pushed back. We know these terrorist groups receive massive funding from hostile foreign intelligence agencies. But foreign funding is not enough to survive inside a country. They have always enjoyed absolute, ironclad facilitation from the inside. Sometimes when the military pushes them out, they simply run across the border and hide in Afghanistan under the protection of the local regime. Sometimes, after the successful operation, a completely different political government comes into power. We saw this especially with the previous administration of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, which actively facilitated the return and resettlement of these exact same dangerous militants back into our tribal areas. Our young soldiers continuously sacrificed their lives to clear the poison, but a few months later, the exact same poison violently bubbles right back to the surface. So why does this keep happening? Why does the Hydra keep growing new heads? We have to go back to the criminal cartels to understand the true mechanics of this war. These are making billions from illegal oil, drug trafficking, and massive smuggling. They use the massive loophole of Afghan Transit Trade to completely bypass the Pakistani economy. They take goods from Pakistan, ship them to Afghanistan without paying a single rupee in customs duty or taxes, and then illegally smuggle those exact same goods right back into Pakistani market to sell at a massive profit. This single operation inflicts devastating, irreversible damage on the local manufacturing sector. But they do not stop there. They have so much raw cash sitting around that it becomes a logistical nightmare. So what do? They take their billions of rupees, aggressively convert them into dollars in the black market, and smuggle the foreign currency entirely out of the country. Think about the sheer scale of this operation. If a smuggler is generating 100 billion rupees a day, he does not care what the exchange rate is. Even if the black market price of a single dollar shoots up to 500 rupees, he will happily buy it. It does not put a single dent in his wealth. But this relentless, aggressive buying completely drains the national foreign exchange reserves and actively destroys the value of Pakistani rupee. For decades, this invisible mafia has been actively engaged in the complete financial assassination of our country, leaving our entire economy bleeding on its knees. But why is there no decisive final action against them? Because when you have 60 billion rupees a day to spend on protection, you can buy a lot of friends. Where does that massive protection budget actually go? First and foremost, It goes directly to militant organizations like Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan and the Baloch Liberation Army. These terrorist organizations are not just fighting for an ideology. They are literally the heavily armed private security guards for smuggling and drug cartels. They actively protect the smuggling routes. They maintain massive, enriched operational networks deep inside Iran and Afghanistan. Whenever the Pakistani military or border forces try to lay their hands on the criminal mafia, the cartels simply make a phone call and activate these terrorist groups. Suddenly, there is a massive suicide bombing in the major city. Suddenly, there is a complex attack on a military checkpoint. The entire goal is to keep the armed forces violently engaged, distracted, and bogged down in a permanent state of war so that smuggling trucks can keep rolling through the desert completely unchecked. This leads to one of the most fascinating and terrifying contradictions in modern geopolitics. Think about the stated ideologies of these groups. The Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan claims that they want to enforce strict Islamic Sharia law across the country. The Baloch Liberation Army is a hardcore secular ethno-nationalist organization that has absolutely nothing to do with Islam. Ideologically, these two groups should be mortal enemies. Yet, they are completely united. They have formed a massive operational alliance and frequently coordinate their attacks. Why? Because it is not about religion, and it is not about nationalism. It is about protecting the multi-billion-dollar criminal supply lines that feed them both. But it gets worse, because the military can fight the terrorists, they can shoot the militants, but how do you fight the enemy wearing a suit? These criminal cartels do not just fund the men with guns. They take their billions and they systematically buy off the exact people sworn to protect the country. They actively bribe officers within the military to turn a blind eye to the smuggling routes. And let us be clear, the rot exists there too. In recent times, the military has actually had to court-martial and severely punish its own officers for being involved in exact facilitation. But the corruption stretches far beyond the barracks. The civilian bureaucracy is sitting right there in the cartel's pocket. With high-ranking commissioners and bureaucrats are posted to these lucrative border areas, they are known to personally collect billions of rupees in daily bribes just to look the other way. When law enforcement actually manages to arrest members of these smuggling rings, the cartels simply pay off the judges and the criminals are instantly granted bail and released right back onto the streets. Their reach extends to the absolute highest echelons of power. And what about our beloved, deeply adored politicians? Do you really think they are sitting out on this flowing river of endless cash? Absolutely not. These master criminals simultaneously manage and fund the state institutions and the corrupt politicians and the terrorist organizations all at the exact same time. They play every single side of the board. And the moment the state actually tries to take serious action against their shared financial interest, their entire corrupt ecosystem instantly springs into action. They immediately launch their highly paid politician pawns into the media to completely hijack the narrative. For the last few years, the top leadership of Pakistani military has finally realized the sheer existential danger of this cartel economy. They decided to physically fence the long, porous border to permanently choke the smuggling routes. And what happened? The moment the fencing started, you suddenly saw massive political protests. You saw a designated political spokesperson sitting in the primetime media studios, actively and aggressively opposing the fencing of the border. When the border crossings were tightened, these exact same voices started screaming about human rights and the destruction of local livelihoods. The cartels are incredibly sophisticated. They do not just use violence. They fund massive, non-governmental organizations to build a soft, progressive image in the media. They spend billions on local charity work, building schools and hospitals in their native areas, ensuring that the local civilian population absolutely loves and protects them. They operate exactly like Pablo Escobar did in the slums of Colombia. What kind of political environment allows a parasite like this to thrive? The answer is simple. A completely fractured, deeply unstable country. If Pakistan is plagued by permanent unrest, if the political parties are violently divided, if the legal institutions are completely paralyzed, if the judiciary is fighting itself, and if the police and the military are seen as total failures, then the cartel completely wins. In short, the absolute weakness of Pakistan is the exact source of their immense strength. The more Pakistan resembles a broken, chaotic banana republic, the easier it is for them to quietly move their drugs and their dollars in the dark. This brings us to the absolute core of the current national debate: the newly announced military initiative, Operation Azm-e-Istihkam. The media will not tell you that this is just another kinetic military operation to hunt down terrorists in the mountains. But that is completely false. Azm-e-Istihkam is not just a war against the foot soldier of the TTP or the BLA. It is the very first time in the modern history of Pakistan that the state is actively trying to cut the actual root of corruption. It is the direct, systematic declaration of war against the criminal cartels and the massive smuggling economy that funds the entire terrorist ecosystem. And once you understand this, the entire political circus happening right now makes perfect sense. Look at who is screaming the loudest. Look at the specific politicians who are aggressively demanding that borders remain completely open for unregulated free trade. Look at the media anchors who are predicting doom and gloom. Look at the sheer panic spreading through the political elite. People are spreading massive coordinated lies about the operation. They are claiming it will cause massive civilian displacement, and they are claiming it will start a massive civil war in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. But the reality is that no massive kinetic operation has even started the tribal districts yet, and the political establishment is already crying foul. Look at the political alliances forming overnight. You have a hardcore ethno-nationalist leader like Mahmood Khan Achakzai suddenly joining hands with Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, a party that holds completely opposite populist ideology. You have the religious extremists of TTP actively uniting with the secular separatists of BLA. Do you really believe this is all just a massive random coincidence? It is absolutely not a coincidence. It is a desperate, unified alliance of cartels, corrupt politicians, and terrorists trying to protect their mutual billion-dollar criminal empire from being dismantled by the state. Now, listen to me very carefully. You might harbor a deep, profound hatred for the military establishment. You might violently disagree with their political interference, and you might view the army as incredibly selfish, power-hungry institution. But even if you believe all of that, you have to look at the cold, hard economic reality. The military operate massive commercial institutions. They run Fauji Foods, they run massive cement factories, and they manage the sprawling real estate empires of DHA. All of these massive multi-billion-dollar military businesses can only survive, profit, and grow if the actual formal economy of Pakistan is functioning and growing. If the state of Pakistan completely collapses, if the economy goes zero, the military's entire financial empire completely drowns with it. Therefore, you can curse the army all you want, you can hate their political tactics all you want, but their ultimate financial survival is permanently tied to the survival of Pakistani state. The criminal cartels, the smugglers, and the terrorists, their survival and their massive profits are tied entirely to absolute destruction and collapse of Pakistan. Once you understand that fundamental difference, the truth stops hiding in shadows. Next time you turn on the news and watch the politicians scream about the border policies, just remember the math. Remember the ghost moving 50 billion rupees a day and realize that the real war is not about ideology. It is about who gets to own the country.